All right, we are live. Many people were talking about whether we were ever going to come back, but we're back. Here we are. Many people. A lot of people are saying that. What's up,
Odd
Brian? What's
people.
up, Megan?
What's up,
It's the
guys?
word
How
on
you
the
doing?
street. We're back though. I feel like it has been a while though, in a weird way. Like it maybe it's only been like 2 weeks or something, but it feels like a long time. Miss you guys.
Yeah, I miss you too. And I do want to say that if you're watching us on the platform formerly known as Twitter, it's because I paid $100 so that StreamYard would be able to stream us from Twitter because it now only does it with premium accounts. So I did that for all of
Fuck you,
you out there.
Twitter.
I
I
did
don't
that for everybody.
approve. I don't
Um,
approve.
I
Can
know.
we not give our hard-earned money to
I
Elon
know.
Musk?
I
Go
know.
fuck yourself from your platform. Go fuck yourself, Elon. Fucking
Well, and
loser.
actually, on that point, you should try to support us. Osiris Premium really helps us. We're all volunteers here. Um, if you're feeling up for it, not you, Elon Musk. We're not talking to you. We're talking to everybody
Yeah, go.
else. Okay. First of all, I just want to say thank you to the listener who left us a review on Apple and gave us this amazing idea to build in 20 minutes automatically of bullshitting into each episode. That was just such a good idea. And thank you for your review and your kind words. That was nice of you.
I wonder if going forward we should just review the 20-minute start of or we should just release the 20-minute start of the episode and then make the rest of it bonus content.
Yes.
That
If
would
you
be
want to actually
amazing.
hear us talk about fish, you've got to pay like what,
You
$9
gotta go
an
premium.
episode? Does that sound fair?
You got to go premium.
You gotta go premium. But honestly, that review was really thoughtful. And I
It
feel like
was.
I felt seen when I listened to that review. And I also realized that there are not that many recent reviews, which
Yeah.
come on,
Not great.
everybody. Come
Not
on.
great.
We
We will
ask all the
talk about
time.
you. We will rib you. We will lovingly scorn you from the internet and from our show if you review us. So, go ahead and do it. I thought it was, like you said, Meg, they knew who we were and they knew the type of critique that we would make as well, and like slid
Yeah.
it in there like around some fantastic praise. I felt really warm when I was reading that, like someone actually listens to us and really cares about who we are. So thank you so much to that.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
It was really nice. Okay. Thank you for that. And give us reviews. Just go on Apple Podcasts, give us 5 stars, write some stuff about how much you like us, and write about how nice we are because we brought this back to X. Okay. I was before this. If you're watching on Instagram, maybe you saw I just had a live Instagram conversation. That was the first time I've ever done an Instagram live conversation. But I talked with my friend Aaron Magner, and we were talking about our event we're doing next weekend in Philly. It's a week from Sunday. We're having 2 Best of Philly chefs make a 4-course meal with free beverage pairing, and Spaga, Aaron Magner's band, is playing. We're going to have a podcast kind of recording conversation. It is a it's going to be a lot of fun, and I just want to say check that out if you are interested and you're in the Philly area. Go to heritageradionetwork.org/feast, and you can check that out. Okay, what else do we have to talk about here? I know that. Oh, sorry, one more thing. We got the famous MK Devo came to Bridgeport, the show that Megan and I were at together, and set up a 10 camera pro shot kind of recording setup, and he mixed that with the audio that was mastered by the bass player in Reprise, Chris DeAngelis, and it's now up on YouTube. It premiered last night, and I was watching it last night, and I could not believe how good it sounded. And it looks like you're watching like a fish show or a goose show or whatever. I mean, the stream, the quality of the camera work and the direction that he does. I mean, he's an absolute pro. But it's, if you haven't checked out Reprise, it's definitely the best way to check them out. They played the 12/2/95 show. The Reba, I think, Meg, was a highlight.
Mhm.
What else? Any other highlights from you?
I feel like the whole second set was amazing. I thought the tweezer was really fun, and hearing them play Fat in there was like so killer. Like Adrian came out on what kind of instrument is that? Like a very small guitar.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, it's called a very small guitar, and just did an amazing version of that. And it's really high energy, super dancey, super fun show. And I don't know, I was wearing a really cool dress, and there might be some like, audience shots of me. You never know. But
It was a really cool dress.
thanks.
That's what I was going to say.
It had a unicorn on it.
I am just waiting for Reprise to do their Colorado tour.
Oh yeah.
Fish
We're gonna
in
all
the
have
late
to come out for
80s,
that.
early 90s. Yeah, come on. We got a lot of Colorado shows that we can
Oh my
pick.
god. They could do one of the 88 shows. That would be so cool.
They could do one of the 88 shows. That's a great call. There's great shows from 93, 94,
Mm.
1997.
Yep.
What else? 2000. There's a great one. Do you want me to just keep going through the years? I
Yep.
don't know. I
Yeah.
can
No,
do this.
no, it's
but,
okay. You don't have to go through every Colorado show. But okay, so I actually, I'm not making any promises, but I just got an email today about a request for Reprise to play in Colorado. I'm not saying it's going to happen.
What?
I'm saying that you're not
That's
alone
amazing.
in thinking that.
Also, big shout out to MK Devo. You think back to like early 3.0. This contextually kind of starts the bridge towards our
Yeah.
conversation to
Yeah.
our Apple Podcast commenter, reviewer, if you will. It was more than a comment, it was a review. We are getting there slowly but surely. MK Devo's videos of Fish in the early 3.0 era, before we had webcasts of every show, before everyone had a cell phone that they put up and broadcast full sets and whatnot. Those were the videos that if you wanted to have any idea what was happening with Fish or what the band looked like and how everything was, evolving and how the lights looked as they were getting back together. Oh my goodness, that was the way to do it back in the late 2000s, early 2010s. Just amazing work. What dedication, show to show, that kind of dedication. We're not worthy.
Yeah. He's awesome. Okay, so we are going to talk about I wanted to say I'm going to be in Ithaca for 2 days next week for work for this podcast thing we're doing. And so if anyone who lives in the area or has recommendations on things that they think I should definitely do or see, please hit me up on social media. Okay, Megan, you want to talk about this GQ article?
Yeah.
Which we haven't talked about yet.
We haven't talked about it yet. I mean, it is like hard to be a Fish fan these days. There's so much content coming all the time at you. But yeah, this article is interesting to me because I think we did learn some new things. There's a lot of things like ground that is recovered in this, but there's also some new stuff we learned, I felt, about the Woodlands Jam, which is pretty cool. That was my favorite part of the article. Them kind of talking about how the Moment Factory did that, how they made this like video montage for an hour. And then the band looked at it and they gave them kind of titles. And the band looked at it and decided like in real time how they were going to kind of react to that video. And I think a lot of people were wondering like what came first and what was the genesis of the jam. So it was really cool to see that and hear from Trey about that.
Brian,
yeah,
what parts did you like and not like?
Hint, hint.
I shared Megan's sentiments. The Woodlands Jam is one of my favorite pieces of music that's been played all year, regardless of the band. One of my favorite jams that Fish played all year. And to hear, I am one of these controversial types that likes to elevate the status of jams that are not played within the finite set 1, set 2 encore formula. I think that set 4s count. I think that soundcheck jams count, when we're discussing the best jams of the year. And so I feel like the Woodlands Jam absolutely counts. And I think that, within that, the idea that they planned this a little bit in advance and that they had ideas going in is a very unique aspect to the Fish experience. It's not something that we see. It's one of the things that makes their jamming so exciting. I found that it didn't limit their jam at all. And the feeling of spontaneity was not gone. It probably offered a little bit more direction in a really cool way. What didn't I like? I don't know. I don't feel like we need to do like the 10 paragraph introduction to who Fish is in every major piece about Fish. Let's just get like a hyperlink that we can send out to any curious music journalist who's like, hey, maybe one day I want to be the guy that writes about Fish. Even though I've never seen the band before, I want to apply my journalistic skills to this. And you guys can throw the hyperlink in that says, if you don't know the top 10 things about Fish, or like the, immediate, just quick overview of the Fish 101, so that we can get past that, just put it right at the top of your article and jump to the meat of it. Like, we don't need to do did you guys know that Fish was on the road and did a very DIY touring structure until the mid 1990s, that they haven't been honored by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, that they never had a hit single? No, I had no idea. I had no idea.
I know. Do you think
Anyway.
it's as annoying to people who aren't like rabid fish fans? I don't know, but it is really annoying because every fish article starts out the exact same way. Like everybody hates this band. Nobody really likes this band. Everybody has like a weird uncle that likes this band. And you're like, yep, okay. Like I feel like derided before the article even begins. But there were some like nuggets of really funny shit. Like Mike saying that his therapist says love is more about curiosity than commitment, which is not funny, actually very interesting. Love that Mike is like quoting his therapist in this article. Like that dude is just like amazing. What a year he's having. And I loved when Trey was talking about listening to fan favorite versions of classics and like thinking about the timing and talking to Paige about that and then talking to like Mike and Fish about slowing down. Like I didn't know that he was still doing that. That's cool. That's really cool.
We had the author of this piece, Grayson Haver-Curran, on Beyond the Pond a couple of years ago, and he's one of my favorite music writers. I was actually really thrilled to see that he wrote about them, and overall, most of it I thought was really incredible when I was reading it. He has a very unique approach to interviewing artists. The closest he's come to Fish has been interviewing members of Dave Matthews Band. He's a huge Dave Matthews fan, but it did not surprise me in like what little I know of Grayson that he seemed to connect the most with Mike Gordon and Mike Gordon's journaling and Mike's approach and Mike struggling when they came back in 09 and Mike really not wanting the band to break up and Mike's, perspective on the band's growth and their strengths and their challenges. It was cool to read something that, was so Mike heavy in parts, because I feel like a lot of these articles you get Trey's perspective and then like sprinkling in quotes of Paige, Mike, and like a funny quip from Fishman.
Totally.
So overall, good stuff. Shout out Grayson, awesome writer. But let's just condense the weird uncle who likes fish. That is the way it all starts.
It is. Well, the way that this starts is with 20 minutes of us just talking, but it's only been 12, so I think we're in good shape.
Well, can I add 8 minutes of talking really quickly? I have one thing to say.
Yes.
You could.
I'm sure you
I don't
could.
know if anybody who's watching notices, but I'm not in a collared shirt right now. I'm actually in a sports jersey.
It's
I'm
shocking.
in a throwback, a Centurion celebration jersey for the 100 years of the Gunners. I wore this to my 100th Fish show. Arsenal has a big match coming up on Sunday against Manchester City. I don't know if there's any Manchester City fans out there, but you can kind of go fuck yourself. I hope that you guys are relegated. I'm really, really just like anti-City in every way possible. I hope that we win, even though I know that we're probably going to lose because Odegaard's out for months. And, we just came off of a Champions League draw and, it's just going to be terrible. I'm really not looking forward to Sunday at all, but I'm hoping against hope that we win. So I just wanted to say that.
I just feel like
7 more minutes.
Whenever Brian's not in a collared shirt, I feel like I'm in like some alternate version of the multiverse. Like it's like something is slightly off.
Hold on. Yes. How the hell is Chad Carter wearing a Cubs hat and cheering for Man City? I don't understand this. It's like we're best friends on one side and mortal enemies on the other side. Chad, we can talk about sports at any time.
I just want to note that I'm wearing my Philadelphia shirt today to celebrate my Supermax, the Philadelphia Supermax prison that we are now in, with Embiid's contract. But we're also one win away from clinching. The Phillies. Could happen tonight.
What a Phillies sports week. My son and I watched the Eagles blow it. They even went to the SVP promo before. It was like 1 minute left in the game, and he said, it looks like the home team's got this locked up. Yeah. And then the Eagles did as much of a Philadelphia move as could happen. It was beautiful stuff.
It was really awful. Really awful. But, that's what happens. It's a long season. We're on to New Orleans, who apparently is the best team right now, unfortunately. All right. Guys.
I'm not wearing any sports shirt, just to be clear.
No, you're not.
For people that are just watching.
That would be so weird.
It would be
Someday I'll
if you wore like a Baker's Dozen jersey or something to this.
Yeah. I think
showed
I
up
have
with like a New York Jets jersey on or something. I'd be like, what the hell happened?
That would be so weird. That would definitely not be me. If I was going to like a game, I'd wear like a sporty thing. But like when I went to see Chelsea play in London, I wore like a scarf, like a Chelsea scarf.
You don't want to show yourself as like too much. You just want the
like the
stylish way.
accessories. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I'd wear like a hat. I'd wear like a baseball cap for sure if I was going to like a baseball game. But I don't know if I'd wear a jersey. That just like it's not really my thing.
Would you pull a Rob Lowe and wear one with like the MLB logo on it, or would it be an actual team? I know that this is probably
don't
like
know
a
what that means.
6-layer 2Jeep
Okay.
joke. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I would wear the team that I like. I'd wear this
Yeah,
team that I was like. Mhm.
The league gear is strange.
Or I could just wear a fish hat.
All right, so guys, let's talk about summer 2017. We're at the number 11 ranked tour. If you don't remember, we're running down the top 25 tours of all time. We took a break because Fish was on tour, and now we're back. All right, we're at the number 11 ranked tour, ranked 13 by fans and ranked 11 by us. And I was thinking, Megan, it might be helpful to like think about 2017 because I think we're going to talk a lot about the context of Fish in 2017, but also maybe the like where we were in the world, because 2017 was a long time ago at this point, and everything was kind of crazy. It was a crazy year. There was a lot going on in the world. But what do you have to say about 2017 in terms of setting the scene?
Well, as far as what Fish was doing this year, they had just played their second time in Mexico. So they did 3 nights in Mexico. And then they embark on this summer tour. So they do 3 nights at Northerly Island in Chicago, 1 night at the Nutter Center, and a night in Pittsburgh, and then the Baker's Dozen, and 3 nights at Dick's. And it was, I think, a peak year after. I think 2015 was a peak year. 2016 was kind of like a valley. And then we kind of come back up. And I think it's really interesting to think about how Fish fans were feeling at that time, especially like this is, towards the end of 3.0. And I think we were looking for more consistency with Fish and kind of wondering if they were ever going to like hit those peaks again. I think that 2015 was really high, but 2016 was not. So it's kind of interesting to think about the challenge they set up for themselves going into this year and how that impacted it. And I know that listening back was an interesting journey. And I don't know if we're going to get into that now, but this tour has a lot of jams. There's 77 entries in the jam chart. There's 3.6 jam charted shows per show. So it's a lot.
Thank you, Megan. This is also, if anyone isn't old enough to remember 2017, this was the first year of the new presidency that we were all getting used to. It was my first year of having twins. It was for me, it was a really strange year. And I feel like some of the context, Brian, to me of this tour is like, it just felt like a really nice thing to have happen in the middle of all the madness that we were dealing with day to day. Because if people don't remember, every day that Trump was president, something insane happened. And I think like some people forget that. Like every day you'd like see a headline that's just like,
yeah,
like something crazy happened again because it's Tuesday, So I feel like this was like a nice thing to have happen, which I don't know, Brian, how you feel, but I feel like a lot of times with this top 25 tours project, I go back to listen in the context of the top 25 tours, and it's a completely different representation of my thinking than it was the last time I listened or when it happened, depending on the tour. But it feels less powerful to me now than it did in 2017, and maybe even like 5 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago. I don't know if you guys feel that way or not.
Oh, I do. No, I think to your first point, like, when I think back on 2017, I remember I went to the New Year's Eve run, 2016, and I remember just like kind of taking a look back at the MSG Bowl before I walked out back into the concourse after the third set, when we got a really nice tab set to welcome us into 2017, just exactly what you need to smooth over the impending Trump presidency. But I remember looking and being like, I don't know when I'm going to be back here. And
wow.
I had heard the rumors. I think that you guys on HF Pod were talking about it in fall 2016. There'd been some stuff that had kind of, started to peter out, and there were ushers that were telling people like, we'll see you guys in July. So there was this sense floating around that like there's going to be special Fish coming in 2017, and it's going to be centered here at MSG. It also was kind of a time that like I think of that as, for me personally, like peak Twitter period. You talk about how much crazy stuff was happening in the news. if you weren't on Twitter, like it felt like you were really missing this conversation that was happening, both as a holy crap, can you believe what is going on like every single day in this country, and also commiserating and just like sharing thoughts and ideas. And you could start to see kind of the realization happening, for a large part of this country about how to actually resist the Trump presidency and how to, actually foment some sort of opposition. So there was a lot of stuff going on at that point in time. And when the band announced the Baker's Dozen, and I think at some point they announced like it'll be a lighter touring year, that second part didn't matter because the Baker's Dozen seemed so all inclusive. It seemed so much like this immersive experience. And as we were in it, it's one of my favorite in the moment experiences with Fish. I think about it with like summer 2015, fall 2013, most of 2021, and then this past summer, as like when you're in the middle of these kind of tours, all other music seems to fold away. Problems in the world seem to float away. And, so many of my conversations, I would imagine you guys are the same, and a lot of our listeners are the same, revolve around, oh my God, did you hear that jam last night? How do you think that compares to the other jams that came on this tour? What are your favorite sets from this tour? What do you think thematically is going on in this tour? And it just becomes this very immersive conversation in the way that sports do when your team's doing really well. That said, like kind of pausing and just pivoting towards where we are, I think we'll get into this, but it is very different now. We did an Undermine season on the Baker's Dozen in 2022 to celebrate the 5-year anniversary. And I feel like at that point in time, we were still very much in the glow of what the Baker's Dozen did to Fish. We've seen a lot of huge leaps forward for Fish in the years since then. Spring 23, most of summer 23, Mexico 24, the Sphere, summer 24, where we're hearing a band that clearly picked up lessons that were learned throughout the summer of 2017 and have built upon them in ways I don't think any of us could have expected them ever doing. And as a result, listening back, this now sounds less like a peak and more like a foundational shift to where we're at today. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting too, because I really struggled back with this listening. I too have really, really beautiful memories of this time. This is completely what brought me back into Fish. We talked a lot about it when we did 40 for 40. Like this is the tour that reinvigorated my love for this band. But listening to it in the context of this summer tour, because I was trying to listen to some of it while I was listening to this tour, it was tough. Like the way that the band in 4.0 just can go so deep, and their jamming is just so connected, and it's so multi-layered, and they have so many different like eras to choose from. And I think in 2017, they just were really learning how to do that again. And I felt this way when we talked about 1999 too, when we talked about our 13th tour, that listening back in the context of today, it's so hard to keep reminding yourself of what the context was. And it seems like this was really, yeah, just them learning to jam again. And I kept thinking about how does the context of how important it was, like you're saying, Brian, this foundational level, does that elevate it to the 11th tour? Like, do you think it's overrated? Because do you think we overrated it? Like, I'm wondering if the listeners at 13 had it better. Do you think it should be lower? Like, it's hard to know, but I do think when I was thinking about this summer and what made it so good, this commitment to jamming and bringing out songs from the catalog, those are things like lessons learned from the Baker's Dozen. So part of me thinks maybe because of that, it deserves its place. I don't know what you guys think.
I think it 100% deserves its place because of everything you just said. One of my kind of why this tour is ranked where it is, one of my points was similar to yours. Jamming came back in small but meaningful doses in fall 2010, summer 2012, fall 13, and summer 15. But summer 17 is when it comes back with a vengeance and for good. From this point in time, there are no more like the dip tours like summer 2019, summer 2022. They still have really substantial jams in almost every single show, which when you think back to like summer 2016, parts of 2014, parts of 2011, that was missing following what we thought was, in the context of that moment, a peak step up tour. So you had this big moment, and there was never really a downshift after this. It was all just like building from it. But
Mm,
I think to your point, they are learning how to jam again. And there are things that they do in jams during this tour. And RJ, I want to hear your thoughts on this because I love like your musical analysis on like the breadth of this band and like how they jam is always amazing to me. But like to me, when I hear Baker's Dozen Jams now, which in the moment was like, holy shit, we're going past 17 minutes. Oh my God, it's 25 minutes.
yeah.
Oh, this peak just like keeps going. I hear a lot of moves now that they are just not even considering in summer 2024 because they have so many more tools to work with. There's so much more understanding of what Mike might do or what Fishman is capable of or what keyboard Page can go to. You know, this is the tour that Page gets a bunch of new synthesizers, which adds new sounds. You hear in summer 2017 Trey being a much lighter guitarist in terms of ideas and in terms of pushing the jams
Mhm.
forward, which now he has no problem with. So I'm on the same page with you, I think, in a lot of ways. But RJ, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of it is what you all have already described, and how much of it is like we've talked about this tour so much, and I've listened to like I'm
Mm.
not sure I've listened to another tour as much as I've listened to the Baker's Dozen. You know, like I've listened to these shows.
It might
Yeah.
be true for
It's
me
like
too,
this and
actually.
it's like this and Fall 97.
Yeah, Fall '97,
Yeah,
maybe
and maybe
maybe
like
Fall '95, but only
maybe some
pieces.
95 too. Yeah, I was gonna say. But yeah.
Yeah. Same with me with like February '03, which is coming up, and maybe a couple others. But so I don't know how much, but I was like thinking as I was going through this, I think I texted you guys like the simple from the second show at
Yeah.
Northerly.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, so this is kind of the sound. Like this is what they do. They like, they break kind of the form like 5 or 7 minutes in. Mike like plays some cool bass lines, then Paige gets on the synths, and then like Trades play some riffs at some point, and then they build to a peak, or it kind of dissolves into a slow song, and that like kind of summarizes the sound for me. For and then you hear in the Baker's Dozen, and it feels it sounds repetitive now going back, but I think at the time it sounded revolutionary, and I don't really know how to reconcile that. I mean, this comment you just put up, they played 13 shows in a row without repeats. Yeah, absolute mic drop for sure. But it sounds so different. Um, but I don't think Fall '97 sounds like this. This one has a little bit of a different um lasting effect now than it did before. Whereas like as
Yes.
we get down to
Mhm.
these like later, the number one, two, three, four, five, whatever, these are older tours probably, but they still have this like magic. And there's something about this tour that like it feels a little bit less magical than it did at the time. But I don't know. I don't know why.
I have an idea. I think it's a little bit to do with the fact that this is within a conceit. Like this is a setup experiment, right? It's a 13 shows with no repeats. We're going to play a bunch of songs that have to do with a theme every night. It's a it's a scaffolded experiment, whereas if you think of like, you know, some of the biggest tours in 1.0, that was just pure invention in the moment. It was
Mhm.
that's like, it wasn't this idea of like we're gonna go out and we're gonna play a Fleet Foxes song and we're gonna, like this stuff that's so creative and made the Baker's Dozen just so thrilling. It's also yeah, a more scaffolded exercise, like an exercise that was designed to push them, and it did, and designed to force them to do things in jam places they wouldn't usually, and stretch things and, you know, have fun. I think the joyfulness and the playfulness of this tour is so evident and one of my favorite things about listening to it, but it's definitely different than listening to the fever dream of like, Fall 97 where you're just like completely immersed in a sound that is just pushing them forward in a way that like you just have to get on and ride with them. This is different.
Yeah, and I do want to just like because I think we're all pretty much on the same page with this. Like I do think before anyone thinks that we are going to take our 11th best tour and just like tear it to shreds, we're not. Like
It's
as
so
as
fucking
I'm
great.
as I'm looking through my list, there are so many jams that I want to recommend that RJ just simply won't let me because of time constraints. But like there are a lot of ideas in these jams that while they sound slightly foundational and slightly basic today because of what the band is capable of, at the time, the idea that they would push through another 3 minutes of a song and reach that point was the thing everyone was craving and the thing that people were
Yeah.
just like begging, like just like there's no need for just the ambient fade into another song in like 12 song second sets. Like what happens if you just played 6 songs in that set? Let's just see. Can we just test it out? And they did it night after night because they had these limitations that they set for themselves, which anytime you set limitations in art, it typically leads to great things because it forces you to test yourself and reinvent. The 13 shows in a row without any repeat songs, the fact that not only are there no repeats, which is something that they've done on a fairly regular basis in the years since and has lost a slight bit of luster, but a lot of those tours where they've done no repeats hasn't had as much inventive new covers, bust outs,
Mhm.
crazy
Yeah.
segues, crazy jam segments. I saw 3 shows of the Baker's Dozen and I saw songs I've never seen anywhere else. And I saw songs together I've never seen anywhere else. And I saw songs jammed out that I've never seen anywhere else. There was something about the limitations and the structure that they set up for themselves that felt like if you took everything about Fish that made Fish special up until 2017 and you just condensed it down into 13 shows, that was it, And so like that, you're right, that structure has its limitations, but it also is what leads to what I think now 7 years later is probably my favorite thing about it.
Yeah, and I would argue that that is actually a theme for me is that when this band sets up experiments or limitations or gives themselves like a new challenge, it forces evolution.
Totally
Yeah.
agree with that.
Yeah, this and this doesn't have the like a lot of new material, this is kind of new covers, but
New
not
covers,
new
yeah, yeah.
material. Which obviously does help drive it. I mean, I was thinking like I'm not even really that interested in talking about the shows, but I mean we should and we should talk about the sound because I think I'm struggling to try to figure out and you all can tell me what we do is like what can we say about this tour that we haven't already said? Is there anything that you all that either of you came across as you were, you know, going through this project that you think was different or that you thought about differently? Or maybe it's this whole thing that we're talking about now.
To me, that's what it was, is this
Yeah.
idea of like, I thought I was gonna listen back to it and Brian mentioned this offline. We just did a really long bonus episode on the Baker's Dozen last year when we were doing 40 for 40 and talked about 2017. But so we talked about a lot of our favorite moments there. And if you're a premium subscriber, you can go check that out. It's awesome. But I do think that I was surprised at how I felt listening back in the context of listening to the whole tour. I think I've listened to certain moments and I'm excited to talk about my favorite jams of this tour. But what surprised me was just, how good it makes Fish now sound. It's just crazy.
Yeah, so maybe that is the answer. Brian, is that the answer?
I think so. I mean, my biggest, just to like show my cards of my one big takeaway that we usually reveal at the end of the episode, but since we're at the start of the episode now, I can reveal it. There's simply no way Fish would be Fish today without the Baker's Dozen. Like the
Yeah,
band that came out of the Baker's Dozen that knew that they could do the things that they could suddenly do, which you saw immediately at Dick's, and maybe that is where we haven't
totally.
focused as much, and perhaps where some of our focus could be in this episode is those 5 shows prior to the Baker's Dozen, which you talk about like a structure to a tour that is like both, hey, we're giving you guys a little bit of a taste of what like a normal summer 2017 tour would be like, and also we are testing a lot of the things that we are going to apply at the Baker's Dozen, just to the Rust Belt of America, so that you all stop complaining and voting for Donald Trump. And then you have Dick's at the end, which kind of falls off towards the end, but has that first show 9-1
Oh,
that is one of the best shows I've seen there. First show I saw there in 5 years, and it was coming from the Baker's Dozen to that. was this sense of, okay, it wasn't just the Baker's Dozen.
Yeah.
This is Fish
Yeah.
now. This is who they are. That No Man Carini Ghost
Oh,
3-song
so
segment that's like 45 minutes long. Really deep, wild, weird jamming. The Down with Disease on the final night. Shout out to Sam Timberg, who bought an acid-laced Otter Pop on the way into that show and ate it and kind of lost his mind for a little bit. And then they played that Disease and he was like, what is happening? Just an amazing version. And those jams, and then you saw it as they led into the MSG, the Triumphant Return in the winter, where the jams just kept coming. And so the theme off of this run was huge celebration, but also we have changed foundationally as a band.
Yeah, do you remember listening to those shows, like, before The Baker's Dozen? I was like, "Wow, these are good." Like,
Yeah.
there were some really, really good jams in those shows, and I was so excited because I was gonna go see the first night of The Baker's Dozen, and I was like, "If this is how they're playing, like, going into this, like, this is thrilling." It was so exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, now that Brian has laid his cards on the table, let's take a quick break and then we'll come back and actually talk about some of the music. We are going to say nice things about the music because we actually like Fish. So just hold on one sec. We'll be right back. All right. So I mean, how should we do this? I just want to note that I had forgotten that they opened the tour with What's the Use, which on 7/14 in Chicago, which
I
is
mean,
just kind of like a crazy move. That's like that show's worth going back to because again, I always listen to the first show of the tours, but I think that's a pretty interesting first show from the opener to lots of songs, but also some really good improv in there.
the debut of Everything's Right.
Debut
Yes.
of Everything's Right, one of the
Huge.
songs that has become like a capital SONG song in Fish, Fish lore at this point in time. It was also the debut of the Moving Light Rig, which the band did not announce. They did
I
not
forgot about
tease.
that.
They did not in any way hint that this was coming. There were limited hints up until the Baker's Dozen happened about what the band was going to do to fully take over those 3 weeks. And I still remember um I, I was at dinner with friends and I was going to come home and webcast the first night of the tour. And I knew I was going to come home midway through set one. And I don't know where my phone just started like blowing up. And I checked it and every person that I knew was freaking out because Fish had a moving light rig. And they were like, this is another level for Corona. And now it's just like the thing. And it's weird when you go to the shows and the venue doesn't have the ability to hold the moving light rig, but like that plus, opening with a song like What's the Use that is not a show opener, but Fish was
So
like,
killer.
screw that. We're going to make this a show opener. The Everything's Right debut, the No Men Jam in set 2.
Mhm.
I mean, it sets like the foundation for where they're going to go for the overall tour.
I have to say too about that Moving Light Rig, for Maple Night, I was directly, like, straight on from the stage at MSG, and
Mm.
I I'm not someone who ever really looks at the lights, like, I'm always just, like, dancing and have my eyes closed all the time, and I remember I was just, like, captivated by the lights so much of the time, and I just couldn't believe it, seeing the whole picture and the way that they illuminated MSG, and he used, like, the sides of it, and it was just so insane, and I just remember being, like, totally blown away by it too, when it's not something I'm usually that into.
I had forgotten about that. But that is that's a big development. Um, okay, so Brian, do you have a couple gems that you went back to and were surprised by or that affected you more this time than the last time you listened?
Yeah, I'll throw a few out from the pre Baker's Dozen run. The Carini from 716 has always been something I love, and I hadn't listened to it in some time, and so going back, it's just really lyrical the way that Trey's playing. The Wombat from 718, and then Mr. Completely from 719. You just have 3 jams there that are just complete jams, and in the context of summer 2017 were huge moments, because you had that Simple on night 2, but then the next night you get a 20. It was still slightly rare to get the 20-minute set 2 opener that we have come to accept now, or song and then 20-minute song. You know, the approach the band takes now is much different than it was leading into 2017. But Mr. Completely was a huge bust out. It had only been played once before in Utah,
Yeah.
2003, 380 shows at that point in time. It's now been
Wow.
played 17 times since then. So it's fairly, it's somewhat gotten into the rotation in the years since. And that, like, having a song like that come back and then jam it with the ferocity that it did and with the diversity of jamming that it did, that to me, right after that show, my podcast co-host Dave Goldstein and I took a bet if they were going to do no repeats. Because my feeling was like, you're not busting out Mr. Completely and jamming it for 20 minutes if you're not trying to see, can we just play a bust out
Yeah.
for 20 minutes, you know, and fill this set time while we're trying to play, you know, no repeats over 3 weeks. So I won that bet. It was a great bet. You can go back and listen to like BTP episode 6. I got a nice 6-pack of beer from Dave. It was great.
I didn't realize that was a bet. Good for you, man. Proud of you.
Yeah. Nice job. Good win.
I mean, kind of the easiest win ever, but I still am proud of you.
There were a lot of people, if you go back,
I'm
and
just kidding. I don't even remember what I thought.
There was a lot of debate at that point in time. Will they or won't they? And there were a lot of people on the fence of like, no, man, they're just going to do a normal MSG run and we'll see like 3 tweezers. But I was like, it doesn't feel that way.
Yeah.
That would have been so lame. 3 tweezers. I don't know.
I mean, to see the idea was that like you can see the difference of how they play tweezer in the same venue over a couple of weeks. Because I feel like when the Dead would do their like 10 show runs at MSG or Boston Garden, you would get just like normal Dead shows, and there is something slightly to be said about that. But at the same time, I'm glad that they did what they did. It was the most Fisher-fied experience.
Yeah.
What about you guys? What jams stick out to you?
I just wanted to mention that Karina you mentioned from Chicago. I feel like my thought listening to that was like, this is like complete and total control of the space. A lot of patience, a lot of it just like felt like they just approached it very patiently. And I mean, that's kind of the whole tour really.
Yeah.
Megan, what stuck out to you jam wise?
Yeah, I'll just say to that, Carini is one of my favorite jams of the whole entire tour. It's so beautiful. It's so Allmansey Brothers. It's just like absolutely gorgeous. But I really love the Sense and Subtle Sounds from the 7:15 show in Northerly Island. It's just develops like really organically into this like galloping, rocking jam. That show in general is really great. It's like, it's pretty highly rated, even though it has like a lot of Wingsuit songs, but the jams are kind of like mellow, but then they kind of like open up, and just, I think the second set's fantastic. And I also really like the Caspian from Pittsburgh from 719. It's that like set closing Caspian. It's just like post-peak perfection, sultry exploration, just really good, like that rocking, bluesy peaked riff to close. Just I love that. It's a good Caspian.
Yeah. I mean, are we going to talk about like the heavy hitters from Baker's Dozen or I mean, we have to, I guess.
I think we should just each give like a few, right? Like our favorites.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll just talk about it once again, the Chalk Dust from 728, which is my favorite, top 5 favorite jam of all time. The segue after the Chalk Dust, and they count it off, so I don't know if it's a segue or not, but the bust out into the debut of You Sexy Thing is one of the coolest, most celebratory, most fun moments of Phish of all time, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. It's just how it is. And I mean,
nothing we can do about
it. Still one of the most fun moments of my 30 years of seeing Phish, however many years it's been. Just amazing. I have a question for you guys. Brian, how does 726 hold up for you? Because that second set is pretty wild.
That's my favorite show of the Baker's Dozen. My favorite jam from that show is The Tube, which closes set 1 and does a really cool thing where it utilizes a ton of cool synthesizers from Page, but also has him on the Baby Grand doing kind of a Madchester thing. It's really, really wild, and just completely leaves Tube in a way that a lot of these songs were doing a lot of these jams we're doing from their songs for the first time. The second set I think flows really well. I think is excellent set listing. I will say on re-listen, I felt that was kind of the set that made me feel the way that I feel right now in terms of the, okay, I think I've listened to this tour enough. I know it's great, but I don't like, but like, I would love to hear 2024 Fish play like that second set, because I think there's just more dexterity, more listening. There's admittedly a lack of force and rage from Trey and command, in the sense that there's a lot more just kind of like effect washes of sound, some chords, a few ideas at a riff, but like nothing sustained over multiple bars. The star of this whole run and of this whole tour to me is Paige. He carries everything. It's like Paige McConnell and the set listing and the willingness to jam that make this whole run so special. So I love it. I do think, just to add on to a jam you talked about, the Chalk Dust is one of those jams that I think really does still hold up. It's very groovy at the start. Fishman and Trey are completely locked in. That wood block segment, the ba ba and like I can remember like the lights. It was, when the lights were just around all of MSG, plus the rig was moving. It was just so wild, and it was complete command of it. And then the peak on that is really well earned and extremely well played. I will just throw out, sorry, I don't mean to keep going on, but I want to just give a big shout out to the Golden Age from 8-1 from Maple Night. If you want to hear Trey at his absolute best in the Baker's Dozen, shout out to Lawn Memo, friend of the pod, amazing dude. He passed me that after the Baker's Dozen, was like, you have to listen to this. This is the best I heard Trey the entire 3 weeks. And I went back. It was one of those, there were so many jams that like, it just kind of, I missed it at the time. And I went back and listened to it. Every time I go back, it's just, there's so many ideas, so much going on from a Trey standpoint. So huge shout out to that.
I have to say, and I know we're not talking about shows, but I think the Maple Night is really underrated. I was there, so there's a bit of attendance bias for me, but that's a really great show. Like the first set is like, has all these like cool ass songs in it. It's got like McGrupp, like Gula with like the maple leaf rag in it. It's got a bunch of bust outs. Daniel Saw the Stone. And then the second set has that 20-minute Golden Age, the Swept Away, the Steep, which is like one of my favorite moments of the whole dozen, because it's just like this 12-minute absolutely surprise jam that just is so fucking good. It's so thrilling, and the crowd is just like going bananas, and it just builds to this like huge crescendo. It's got a great 46 Days for RJ. It's just so sick, that version.
Yeah.
Perfect Piper.
I was there.
Like,
so great.
Yeah. It was so great. You loved it. You were just so happy about it.
Always.
And a Rock and Roll Suicide encore. Like, this is a great show.
Yeah. We can talk about shows. I think we should.
Well, I think that's a little bit underrated for sure.
Yeah. I mean, what do you guys think is the best show of this tour overall?
I would still go 726 with 9-1 as the backup. And this is, attendance bias here, but like 9-1, it opens with a jam off of Blaze On. Breath and Burning has a jam. Tube has a really cool jam. There's a Rogue for Meg that has a really great little kind of expanded segment off of it. More to close the first set, because, must be something more than this. Oh, there is. Trey was telling us. And then the second set, you get No Men's, Carini, Ghost, Harry Hood. And then because Trey knows I've never seen a 4-song second set and does not want me to see one, they threw Cavern on the end of there. We were in a perfect range. 4-song set, No Men, Carini, Ghost, Hood. What else do you have to say? Oh, we have to do our little dance. But like that show to me has always been important. I said a little bit about it earlier, but like the idea that the band took what made the Baker's Dozen special without a donut attached to it. The first show post Dozen, it's been 4 weeks. The glow is still hanging over us. And they decide, let's just apply what worked at the Baker's Dozen to this show. And maybe it's not decided, but that's how they played. And it just foreshadows where they're going to go from there.
I think it's I appreciate your effort. I think it's impossible to make a case for any show besides the Jam Night
Jam night?
show.
Yeah.
Only because, and
Jam
it's
night.
we've talked about it so much, but there's the jamming, which is really like the stash. I think that's maybe the thing that stuck out to me when I went back and listened to it for the 50th time or whatever. Like the stash is really weird and it gets out there, and like I kind of tend to think about it all about the Lawn Boy and the my friend, which maybe gave birth to the jamming of the song, even though it hasn't been consistent. But this the like realization in sample
I
through the end of the
know.
show, it's just such a
It
special show. Did we maybe we talked had this exact conversation last year and
we
said
probably
maybe
did.
it's like a
And
special show, which does that count? Is that the same thing as a great show, Meg? I don't know.
but it is great. And you didn't even mention the Cross-Eyed, which
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
one of my favorite jams of the whole entire tour. I mean, it is just an absolutely perfect jam. It's so unbelievable. I mean, it has to be, to me, that has to be number one. I would actually say like the Dick's Friday night show would probably be second for me because just like it's really special. I also think the Jimmy's night is like incredible. That has to be like in contention, I think, for one of the top
Yeah.
shows.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah, that
think there's
was
like the other
ridiculous.
ones that are like the Glaze night, which I think is just like so sentimental that it felt like really, really special.
Yeah.
But I think, and I like Maple just because I was there and I think it's a cool show. But I think that you got to do like Jam, Dick's, Powder Night for sure. I think those are like the best.
I definitely understand the case. And I do think like it is slightly surprising to me that with how much jamming we've seen over the last 7 years from this band, we haven't seen an unannounced jam filled show where it's just like every
Mm,
song, because it just kind of is a part of Fish shows now. Like my friend is now a
Yeah.
jam vehicle. That I don't think happens without the Baker's Dozen. But I do think it would be interesting to like just see a show that kind of takes this model where it's just like every song is going to have, you know, 4 or 5 minutes of jamming, if not more, tacked onto it.
you don't feel like
I
they have? I
also,
feel like they have though at some shows. Like Dick's this year definitely had some sets that felt like
Yeah.
that for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, you just don't have like the sample,
The
Lawn Boy,
whole
my friend, these 3 songs that
That's
never
true.
jammed, one of which was like supposed to be a radio single, the other one is a joke 2-minute song, and the other one is deeply composed. Like to have those 3 songs open the show, especially having sample
Yeah.
open the jam filled show, the only
So
night of the
good.
Baker's Dozen
Yeah.
where they
God.
announced the donut before the show, but like the out at the conclusion of the previous
Yeah.
show. Okay, everything else, the donut came out the afternoon of that show. That was the one night they were like, hey, low ticket sales, jam night. So much
Oh,
hype, so much intensity around that show. People walked in, they had curtains behind the stage because they hadn't sold the entire venue out. There was an elevated sense of pressure that the band oftentimes, and they have gone on record saying this, cannot live up to. Like that is a hard thing to do. The best
yeah,
Fish
yeah.
shows tend to happen when nobody is looking, the night before the night thing. And they walk on stage and they open up with sample, to which everybody groans because they're like, oh, okay, the jam thing was a joke. We'll get a couple jams here and there. And then they jam sample in a jar. Like just brilliant, messing with the audience, knowing the like 8-layer deep jokes on the internet that are going to like piss people off and then make everybody celebrate. Just awesome. Like that is Fish thinking like Fish fans.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly why. And then like to have this troll of like, is this still Lawn Boy, that becomes kind of like the theme of the Baker's Dozen. It's just like, oh, that's I think what makes that show the best.
Um
Like what you just said.
Yeah, I think you put it well, Brian. I just want to mention that one funny thing about that show is that compared to some of the songs that have been jammed since then, it's kind of a clunky entry into the jam portion. Like they were like it doesn't like
Yeah.
if you listen to the my friends from this summer, where it's just like it's so seamlessly goes into a jam. They're like, okay, so we have to like now transition from the song into a jam, which just sounds different now because we've heard so many more songs be jammed that aren't designed that way.
Well, and that's such a great point about like what we were saying at the top. they're taking chances in things I think that they deliberately avoided for years because they didn't want that clunky moment. They wanted the flow, they wanted the
Right.
big rock show approach. And now like they could play any song and like there's so much communication going on that they can figure a way out without it ever sounding like they're trying to figure a way out into a
Yeah.
jam.
I know.
And they had to like you could see the threads as they were trying to figure this out.
All right, Megan, what's one show that based on this project you're going to go back to that maybe you wouldn't have before?
Not necessarily like one of the best ones that we've talked about.
Yeah, or anything that stuck out to you that you were like, well, I want to actually go back to and listen to more.
I mean, I think that the Dix shows really kind of surprised me, and maybe I'm just like into Dix now because I hope nobody takes that and like pushes that on the internet. But I I just feel like I'm thinking so much about it because of like how great this last run was. But it was really interesting to me like how great those shows were, especially Friday. I think I remembered that, but I didn't totally remember that. Like that second set on Friday is one of the best second sets they played in the whole tour. That surprised me.
What about you, Brian?
I honestly found the Ghost from 8-5 to be really surprising.
Hmm.
I didn't really enjoy that show when it was happening. It's still, when I think back on it and I look back on it, I think it's the weakest Baker's Dozen show. I think it's probably that or like Night 2 of Dix, one of the weakest shows of the overall um, summer. I know someone's going to come back and be like, "Whoa, man, the Boston thing that they did in set one." Okay,
Yeah.
okay, like a cover
That was
song
cool.
joke. Great, great, great. That does not make it a great show. But the Ghost, when I went back and listened to that, it has similar feelings to the Chalk Dust Torture from a week or so prior, um, where you can kind of hear the band. It's very peaky, it's very rock driven. It doesn't get into those like dark, weird spaces that they would start to find in summer 2018, and which kind of leads us to today. But it is a jam that in summer 2016 would have been 14 minutes and not really
Mm,
much to listen back to. And when you hear it now, you just hear a band continuing to say, okay, if we are in a rock space, how do we expand this segment so that it's just that much more well earned? So, not necessarily a show, but like that jam, I definitely have gone back and listened to a couple of times since we started re-listening to this tour. Way back in like June, I think, was when we were originally planning to do this.
Yeah.
And then I went back and listened to some highlights and really liked it.
I just want to say quickly that I don't even really listen to Dick's shows from this year because I just have listened to the Baker's Dozen and the shows before. So I think that 9-1 show is really great. Okay, so we have and the shows before also. I think those are maybe more interesting than I gave them credit for. We
they're
didn't really
really
talk
good.
about the Simple from the second night, but that's a really good like. But they all feel like they're precursors to the actual Baker's Dozen.
718 was
Yeah.
my pick for like if Live Fish were to release like a vinyl of something
Yeah.
from summer 2017, because we've gotten the Baker's Dozen release, but 718 is that is a complete show. Just
Totally.
like looking at the set list, you got the debut of Tuesday. It's on a Tuesday. That will come back the following Tuesday at the Baker's Dozen. Peaches, Free, Rogue, Sugar Shack, Maze, Horn, Crazy Sometimes, 46 Days, Runaway Jim. It's a really solid first set, like nothing crazy. But the second set is an outstanding 23-minute Disease, Mountains in the Mist, which like that is one of the best ballads that this band could ever play. Waves, a really cool Ghost, a Type 2 Wombat, a wild Chalk Dust, and then a Squirming Coil encore. From a set listing standpoint, that's about as classic as you can get. The debut year average is 1998. So you're just like right in that sweet spot for where so many Fish fans, really got into this band and really started touring with them. And you just heard, like, it feels like an old school show to me where you've got songs, but then you've got jams in places where jams would have gone in the late 90s, and these surprise kind of jams emerging and thinking, because at this time, sorry, quick digression, but like at this time, we were so used to, if you got one jam a show, you were really lucky. And a show like
Yeah.
this, you were getting them multiple times throughout a set, and you were just hearing this band really showcase, a ton of ideas and a ton of creativity.
I loved that show. That show surprised me too. I feel like I hadn't returned to it in a long time, and it really surprised me. Like even the free in the first set kind of opens up, and you've got like all this like funky clav. Like there's so many great moments in that show.
It really rules. What would you release in terms of a Baker's or a 2017? Like, let's say Shapiro called you up and said, "Hey, we're trying to release a vinyl or a video, if you will, of summer 2017 show." What are you going to do?
Outside of the Baker's Dozen,
Could be inside, whatever.
I mean, I really like the 7:15 Northerly Island show. I also really, really like I mentioned, I really think the Maple show is fantastic. It's so many interesting songs and gems in places that are like really unexpected. I think either of those would be pretty cool to have on vinyl.
I think those are good picks. Shout out to 8-2 set 2. Just a great Mike song, "Oh Holy Night." Taste.
Yeah, that one's fun.
First ever, first in a long time type 2 taste. Just really great stuff. What else do we have to say about this, RJ?
We said everything. This is a
Everything.
funny comment from Christian that says, "I remember prices for flights to NYC soaring after Pittsburgh set 1," which I think is probably
That's
accurate. I
awesome.
believe you.
Makes
I
sense.
believe you. All right. So one interesting thing is that we are now hitting the top 10 as of next week, and we're going back to 2.0, if you can believe it. I can't, but I bet Brian can.
I'm excited. I liked it when we were in 2.0 before. That was fun.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except for our besides our 2004 show from last year that almost broke up the band forever. We have fun going back to 2.0.
Yeah,
Fun.
it's true. It'll be fun.
So everyone knows we're going to be in winter 2003. So put your Sammy Smiths on ice and get your parkas on. Get ready. We're going to be going to Cincinnati and Nassau and all kinds of places.
Going to my first show. We're going to my very first
that's
show.
so awesome.
Aw.
That's exciting. Oh my
That's so
god,
adorable.
nostalgic.
That
That's
is
so
just
amazing. Are we going to hit
Eh.
all of our first shows in the top tour, in the top 10 tours? We're going to hit mine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mine too.
we're gonna hit all of them. Yeah, I know
That's so
Yep.
cool, right?
Yeah.
How cool is that?
that.
Top 10, man. That's crazy.
Now
I will say-
go ahead, Brian.
Well, I was just gonna say, if you've enjoyed this, but also been like, hey, you guys skimped a little bit on the Baker's Dozen. Just a quick reminder: we did a bonus episode last year that was supposed to be 20 minutes long, and it ended up being like 95 minutes, where we went through every single Baker's Dozen show and listed off multiple highlights. And also,
Were you mad about that, Megan? Were you like taking that? Was that where Brian and I just went through every show and you weren't prepared?
Well, like I prepare pretty deeply because I don't have this type of brain where I can remember all this shit off the top of my head like you two freaks. And so I came with my like 4 or 5 top like highlights of the Baker's Dozen, and RJ's like, so let's start at Coconut Night, and here we go. And I'm like, fuck, like looking back, like what are the show? Oh yeah, but I think I pulled it off. I don't know. You guys can tell me if I didn't.
Of course you did. Of course you
I
did.
definitely said we're recording a quick bonus episode, and I
Yeah.
can go pick up the kids in 20 minutes. And it was I need you to go get the kids. And I also will
Important
say,
shit talking about 2017 fish right here.
from this very desk, from this very spot, I made the Undermine season 3 Baker's Dozen 5 episodes. We looked at the history of MSG. We looked at set listing. We looked at jams. We looked at a couple other things. I'm blanking on it because it was totally immersive, and then I forgot it all afterwards. But if you want more Osiris HF Pod adjacent Baker's Dozen content that is not like, is it as good as we thought it was? No, I swear to God, there have been many times where we've all been like, this is the greatest shit in the whole world. Oh my God.
It's before fish was as good as they are now again.
That's a good point.
It's crazy. I'm kind of coming around to that viewpoint
Right?
after all this time. This is great. Thank you. Thanks to the comments that are saying thank you to us. Thank you to you, our listeners. And I guess we're going to be back. We're going back to 2003 next week. Bring your flip phones, and we'll see you guys there. Thanks, Megan. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks,
See you
everybody.
guys.